Now that's significant. The Market Research Podcast.
Where we're going, we don't need roads. Any guesses where that quote came from? Some of you might have been 99% correct. My reference was actually from Track to the Future, a presentation we gave at SMR Congress in 2016. Hi everyone, thanks for joining us on this latest episode of Now That's Significant, a market research podcast. This is your host, Michael Howard, the head of marketing at Infotools. Today, we're joined once again by my colleague Horst Feldhaeuser, Group Services Director at Infotools. Thanks for joining us on the show, Horst.
You're welcome, Michael, and great to be back.
Yes, indeed. So Horst is a fellow of RANZ, the Research Association of New Zealand, a qualified practicing researcher at the Research Society Australia, a mentor for Wire, and a two-time nominee for the Insights 250. He's also not shy of sharing his views and expertise and contributes regularly in industry publications and social media, podcasts included. So, Horst, what's the most significant thing you're going to share with us today?
We're talking a lot about tracking, research tracking today, and the most significant thing I'm going to say is that research tracking studies are still very much alive, but we need to constantly review and improve them. There is a lot of risk take out there that will help us to do so, and there's no better time than now to make changes to keep your trackers relevant. Do it now.
Okay, interesting to hear what you've got to say coming up. So, you mentioned constantly reviewing brand trackers. Can you give us some thought around how you've done this in the past, which might help us to do the same now? I guess especially in light of the generative AI and discussions around synthetic data that we've been hearing so much about.
Yeah, sure. So you mentioned our presentation in 2016, so 8 years ago. We co-presented with our friend Claire Halsey from the Coca-Cola company at the SMR Congress in New Orleans, a paper that was called the Taste the Feeling of the New Coca-Cola Brand Tracking Ecosystem. As our industry even then was discussing the future of tracking studies, we used the Back to the Future analogy to make it track to the future.
Okay, so I kind of love that creative angle. So what were some of the key points from that paper?
Funny you ask, and I obviously knew that you asked me that question, so I have revisited some of the principles of that paper to see whether they still hold true today and whether brand tracking still has a future. So first up was for us a comment about updating our survey base to better represent changing consumer demographics and business growth. And this is 100% still valid and true. With the ever-changing consumer landscapes and their needs, we need to talk to the right people at the right time in the right way. So one solution fits all does not exist really. Second is in refining its tracker, Coca-Cola had to start relearning. There was a huge amount of local knowledge, but it wasn't globally actionable at the time. It now is, of course, and has been delivering well for some time, but with Gen I, as you mentioned before, knocking at our door, we are re-entering into another phase of relearning. And then there's a couple of aspects that are more relevant today, I think, than they even were before. Track what people do in a more accurate way, track how people think in a shorter way, and track how people feel in real time.
All very good points. So we've seen a big change in res tech as well, of course. How do you feel that's impacting on some of these principles?
Yeah, this is for me really twofold. First, in the data collection area, and then secondly, in the data processing, analysis, and decision-making side. Back in 2016, we talked about upgrading our research technology question types and approaches, and also about integrating programming advances to serve only relevant questions per respondent, thus getting a more accurate view, shorter modular surveys, better quality, and better respondent experience, as I mentioned before as well. And while there are many surveys out there that use modular approaches, I think we still need to spend more time and more thought on the experience our participants have, no matter what device they use.
Where do you feel though our experiences have, I guess, fallen away? with that particular point?
Yeah, I still think we're asking too many questions in a too complicated form, and we're not making enough use of passive data collection, things how we can collect data in the moment better, really.
Hmm. Okay, so speed obviously also plays a big role in this as well, I'm assuming. Or
Yeah,
not.
massively.
Mm.
And we highlighted that back in 2016 as well by saying delivering faster turnaround of the entire data delivery process and improving the information use and the understanding through better tools. And I think this is where over the years we've seen the biggest positive change with new technology coming in. There's so many better data delivery processes that have shortened the time significantly. And there's many data analysis and socialization tools become available for different applications, really. And then, of course, there is the newfound wonder solution, generative AI today, which many of us already implementing to find those data nuggets quicker. And we need to really give that some thought of how we can best utilize that.
Mm.
I think the biggest challenge for insight professionals is now to find the right ResTech solution for their specific business needs, because again, not one size fits all, really.
Yeah, it seems like there's a new ResTech SaaS company starting up almost every day, every hour, probably around the world. So it definitely does make it a challenge. I do recall before my time at Infotools, we created a guide, a buyer's guide to market research, which is available, still available on our website, and I guess the foundations, the principles of that document haven't changed at all. There's still things that you need to weigh up. Are you doing your the basics right, etc. So, given that, are there any other principles that you wanted to highlight, or you think are specifically relevant for the change that we've had recently?
Yeah, absolutely, and I'm quite passionate about that, and I think again we don't do enough about it. Is one of the last points we looked at the time was upgrading our thinking to measure only at the appropriate cadence of change. And here I think it's really important to remember the main purpose of all tracking data, well, of all insights data for that matter actually, which is to support informed business decision making. In my opinion, there are still too many trackers out there that ask redundant questions that the business can't or won't be able to action for whatever reason. So why even ask? On the flip side, I think the good news is that we have become much more proficient in utilizing other data sources more effectively to reduce the burden on participants. Think social and marketing data, sales data, social media comments and reviews, geolocations. If we bring those into our analyses, we can stop asking some of the questions that we are still doing. Incidentally, someone like Coca-Cola is still using trackers, though very different ones to 8 years ago. And they also dabble in more futuristic approaches like virtual reality research and things like that. So they're playing around with a whole lot of options. They do social media reviews and bring that into their data. So I think certainly we come a long way there, but I still think that many of those trackers still need a bit of a review.
Yeah, I mean, so ultimately, we're not putting all our eggs in one basket. We're not saying that this is the absolute only way to go down, and if you're not, then you're in the past. But holding firm to those fundamentals, understanding people is still the aim of the game.
100%. And again, we know that trackers, we don't want to see change really, right? Because if we see change, something is happening in the business or in the environment. But at the same time, we need to review those trackers and make sure that they're still fit for purpose and don't ask questions that are redundant just because we have asked them for the last 10 years or so. So I think trackers, in my opinion, are still very much alive and needed. We have got new tools like generative AI and synthetic data, and they can invigorate them rather than replacing them. They can be a big part. As we have for such a long time, as an industry, we haven't just looked in one way. We always combine quant and qual and neuroscience or customer experience. It needs to be a mix of all, and that includes generative AI or augmented data in some form as well. But those trackers need to look different than what they've looked 8 years ago, right? We can't continue with 20, 30, 40-minute questionnaires and expect high completion rates, because we're going to lose people. And we're going to lose people telling us what they do. And what we get is potentially fraudulent results, which we don't want. If we have, short 10-minute surveys and with a good participant experience, yeah, we might get those respondents rates up again.
Carry on.
Sorry, go ahead. Yeah, and for me, trackers are still there to help the businesses discover what works and what doesn't, and then make decisions based on that.
The kind of change that you're talking about can be a fine line, can't it? So you need to ensure that your tracker is modern and it's staying relevant, but you also don't want it to change too much, do you? Or else you're comparing against two very different things.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's a fine line, but it comes back to the principles. What can we actually do with this data, and keep to that? And is there a better way of collecting some of the data, right? If we have in moment data collection, maybe for consumption or for buying or sales data that we want to bring into, rather than asking people to trying to remember why they bought something. So I think we just need to be smarter and think more from a participant side, a consumer side, rather than just from a business side that says, oh, but we had answers to those questions for the last 10 years, let's continue, even if we can't do anything. So I think as an industry, our responsibility is certainly to the participants, and we need to embrace those changes when they come. You can't run a 5-year-old tracker without reviewing it. There are better technology solutions out there than ever. Generative AI, we talk about it, it's never going to be as bad as it is now. It's only going to get better more and more, and already people are using it. Again, bring those solutions in and think about how you can expand your knowledge of what's going on in the market. Long, boring trackers are a problem, and we just don't want them. They're a problem left, right, and center. Starting from the participant experience or our response rates or to the data quality. So why do we do it? But change is, as you said, is a fine edge, and it's hard, but that's our role. We need to support change.
Not true. So I mean, is there anything that you kind of, I guess, challenge or invite the industry to in terms of embracing such change?
Oh, we just, as I said, yeah, we need to embrace the change, and we shouldn't be afraid. And yeah, it's not going to be easy. Even 8 years ago, we said change is hard, and you will have trend breaks, and you will have stakeholders that might want to fight for their one question that they look at every couple of years. And you will need a senior stakeholder to support it. But at the end of the day, you come out better by having better designed surveys, by reducing time of your surveys, by getting better data quality, potentially, or most likely saving money, and ultimately make better business decisions. And that's what it's all about. We must not forget. Everything we do is about getting better business decisions.
That's right. And when you consider how many billions of dollars are spent every year, or trillions, if not even, in advertising around the world, having brand trackers that are functioning well, that are relevant, that are helping businesses to see what's working, what isn't, what's connecting with consumers, etc. There's a good place for brand tracking done well.
Absolutely.
And it'd be good to have this discussion in another 8 years as well to see how far we've come as an industry on brand tracking.
Yeah, we might have to have it a bit earlier even. Who knows? That with the change that's happening, I mean, it goes so fast. But yeah, let's have it in a couple of years. And I think it's a constant review, really. I mean, everyone who is working on a brand tracker, whether that's on the corporate side or whether on the supplier side, or the partner side, we need to constantly review that, and that should be part of our roles, really, rather than saying, oh yeah, set and forget. That's not going to happen. That's not good enough anymore.
Absolutely, and we obviously haven't been sitting idly either since since 2016 as well. Our thoughts and our platform and whatnot have come along too. So
yeah, a few changes there as well, and hopefully, with things like chat harmony coming up soon as well, that will help. Certainly, analyzing that data and finding those data nuggets quicker. So yeah, I can't wait for that.
man, so thank you very much, Horst. Any final words before we close?
No, I think I said it all. It's all good.
Nice.
Thanks, Michael, for having me. Always appreciate being here on this chat, whether it's as a guest or as a host. Yeah, good fun. And please come and listen back and share as widely as you can, and work on those trackers.
Thank you. Thank you for everyone who has listened in today. If you have liked what you've heard, feel free to subscribe to the podcast, share it with others, or even leave a review as well on your platform that you're listening to today. Until next time, thanks for listening to Now That's Significant.